So my brother says that I should start making videos of some of the different things that I make. And anyway, today I am working on building a temperature gauge for my rat rod out of a pressure gauge. What I'm building right now is the bulb that goes into the engine. I started off with just a standard brass fitting as the one on the right. I removed the hex portion in the center and then I threaded it. So I threaded it all the way up to this area so that my hopes are that it will thread in to the water neck about this far, leaving the bottom part to work as the bulb inside the engine. So as we go along, I'll make some more videos and we'll see how it works. Alright, so today we're going to fill our temperature gauge with some ether. As the ether expands, it will increase in pressure. As it increases in pressure, that'll give us an indication of what our temperature is running at. We're going to use John Deere starting fluid because it's 80% ether. So we're just going to go ahead and fill up our tube with ether. Let's make sure we are all the way full. Okay, so we are full there. We're going to put some sealant down inside on the threads. Okay, now that we've got some thread sealant on the threads, we're going to go ahead and thread in our temperature gauge, or pressure gauge. That's going to be our temperature gauge. And we need to make sure that we get this clocked in the right spot, because once all this sets up, we won't be able to change the angles. So we're going to clock this thing so that it lines up with our oil pressure gauge. Right there. And that hopefully will seal up, and that will be our temperature gauge. We can see that already as the ether is warming up to room temperature, we're getting an increase in indication on the gauge. So hopefully that's a good sign. Later, like I said, we will take this out and calibrate this based on an Autometer gauge that we have from another project that we're working on. Okay, so today we are calibrating our rat rod temperature gauge. Here's our temperature gauge right here. We are boiling some water, and I've had to add some salt because we're at 5,000 feet. So that means it's going to boil at a lower temperature. So we have here our Autometer temperature gauge, and we're going to hold the temperature of the water at about 212. Okay, what are we at right now, Emily?
213.
213. Okay, so now we're going to see what our gauge indicates. With our gauge in the water bath and the bulb is submerged in the water but not touching the bottom of the pan. So it looks like we're at about 110 psi when we're at 212. Are we still at 212?
Yep.
So I'm going to adjust the gauge just a little bit so that it indicates 100 psi at 212. That way it'll be kind of like it's indicating in Celsius. Now you could remove the marks from the pressure gauge and put whatever marks you wanted on there. but this way 100 psi will be about 212, 210, and then 125 psi should be about 240, and we don't want to get above that when you're running your engine. So we're going to adjust it just a little bit here. So to adjust your gauge, we're going to take the gauge, and there's a little link on the back side. So if you look, this little link right there, this kind of bent, we can straighten that link just a hair, and that'll change our indication just a little bit. We got it set pretty close to 100 psi with our Autometer gauge at 212. So our normal operating temperature should be between 75 and 100 psi. Here's the final install of our temperature gauge on our rat rod. Off to the left you can see our boost pressure gauge. In the center is our temperature gauge, and on the right is our oil pressure gauge. I really think the deconstructed gauges give it kind of a neat look.